Buying a used or refurbished notebook is a great way to save money. All you have to do is make sure it has an SSD in it and maybe swap out the battery, and in most cases, you're off running and not missing out on too much compared to a modern PC. Does this also apply to a workstation-class laptop? Let's find out. This then is the HP ZBook G3. I bought it as a refurbished unit, and it comes packed with the Intel Core i7-6700HQ CPU from the Skylake days that runs 4 hyper-threaded cores sharing 6 megs of L3 cache, mated to the Nvidia Quadro M1000M Quadro GPU with 4 gigs of GDDR5 VRAM. It also has 8 gigs of DDR4 memory, a Samsung 256GB NVMe SSD, working underneath a 15.6-inch 1080p matte IPS display. At its heart is a 90 watt-hour lithium polymer battery, which is relatively huge and promises to last quite a while. Gaming still drained the battery in 40 minutes, but that's with nearly full performance. Streaming video will only chip away at the battery life, taking about 4 hours to do so. The 150-watt AC adapter has an impressively long umbilical cord, so even if you're stuck with a shorter from-the-wall cord, you're still looking at 8 feet, which is a comfortable length. Should you acquire a longer from-the-wall cord, you can work even further away from the plug. You can expect to pay around $1,000 for one of these out of the box, but due to their poor popularity, you just might be able to pick up a used one for far less than that. Let's see what all those holes in the side do. On the right, we get a headset in, USB 3.0, HDMI, 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports, and the DC in. To the left is the lock slot, gigabit LAN, 2 USB 3.0 ports for a total of 3 standard USBs, and a card reader. Sure, it's down 1 USB port from an optimal setup, but 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports? That's just awesome! The top of the ZBook features a subtle inverted bubble design that you can barely feel with your fingers surrounding a chrome HP logo. The palm rest is also aluminum with a matte finish, and quality plastics bezel in the screen and support the bottom of the notebook. The keyboard has 0 flex to it, the chassis bends only slightly, and the display flexes just a bit but is still remarkably sturdy. The finish on the keyboard keys and touchpad haven't worn a bit, and fingerprints are visible but are muted all throughout. Keeping the notebook clean will be a chore, but not a challenge. Taking off the underside cover is a simple effort if you have a T9 Torx screwdriver. Because it isn't accessible to most consumers, a gut shot just doesn't belong in this video. I'll cover it in a future feature. The keyboard on this ZBook G3 is a total gas. These chiclet keys have a short travel with a muted tone that doesn't reverberate in the chassis at all. The white backlight has 2 brightness levels that I don't mind leaving on the higher setting. The power button is on the same side as escape, which I normally don't like, but it's far enough removed to not be a problem. There is also a dedicated Wi-Fi toggle and speaker mute button, plus the option to choose whether or not the function keys are function keys first, hotkeys second. Overall, it is very premium, but I really do miss having a numpad. The flanking grills were a bad choice, especially given the average performance of the speakers. We'll get into that later. Manipulating the cursor on this touchpad is not too shabby. HP's built-in driver lets you toggle between their crappy version or Windows Precision. Of course, you shouldn't use HP's solution. The multi-gestures are finicky, and small movements either don't register or are too fast. Windows Precision mode feels more natural, and there's an option that turns off the touchpad when you use the keyboard. It's nice, but it slows the response of the touchpad, and it's more annoying than useful. Also, there are no physical keys to be found, but right-click isn't hard to find. It can also be toggled by a double tap to the top left corner. Onto the monitor. This is by far the greatest notebook display I've ever stared at. The colors are brilliant and rated 99% sRGB and 63% Adobe RGB, making this an exceptional display to edit photos and videos on. Being an IPS screen, the colors don't distort at an angle, but the brightness fades just a bit at a far angle, though it's nothing compared to these modern cheap IPS screens I've seen, and you won't have to tilt the monitor when adjusting your seating position. Ghosting is also reduced compared to most, rivaling that of the Gigabyte P35W I previously reviewed. It also gets comfortably dim, a little bit more than comfortably bright, and the finish is so matte that it will be possible to use outside in the sunlight. What more can I say? It goes everywhere and it does everything, but higher resolutions and refresh rates. Be happy. The noise emitters here are from Bang & Olufsen, and they most certainly perform better than average. Overall, they have a clean, crisp, flat sound without extra EQ software, so bass tones just get dropped, and the resulting audio experience is not muddy at all. Digesting video media will be satisfying. They don't get as loud as the Dell G3, and the sound is less robust, but the clarity is a cut above. The natural bass in Rage Against the Machine's Calm Like a Bomb is quiet, and the deep bass in A Perfect Circle's The Package is non-existent, though the heavy guitar hits still bring forth their full emotion. The system performance of the G3 workstation leaves little to be desired. It's a full-blown mobile Core i7 with 6 megs of L3 cache, running a Samsung Performance NVMe SSD with read speeds of around 2 gigs a second. Anything over 500 megs a second is just gravy for regular system use, but there's no such thing as too much gravy. Another great thing about it is how many UEFI configurations you get, like toggling virtualization, which GPU to use, or even toggling turbo boost. If you're using this notebook for what it was intended for, that is, 3D modeling and calculations, you can't fault the SSD or CPU to be your bottleneck. And for anything you do with this laptop, it will always be super quiet with excellent body temps. With its lack of thermal throttling, I don't know how they did it. And if the tacked-on Intel GPU doesn't give you enough performance in Windows, you can tell the ZBook to always use the Nvidia GPU just like a regular desktop computer. Thus, unlike most laptops, Nvidia's Shadow Play will then be able to record everything on your desktop. That's very impressive. I heart it. I heart it lots. On to gaming. Expect similar performance to the modern MX150 GPU or the outdated GTX 860M. Sure, it has 4 gigs of VRAM, but it's not wired for gaming, being a workstation graphics card. Despite these setbacks, you can still game on this notebook if you choose your titles right. Anything from Blizzard is still easy to render and passes the test. More complicated titles like Tomb Raider or Witcher 3 will put up too much of a fight and struggle to hit 60 frames per second in any resolution or detail level. Needlessly punishing games like PUBG will make the poor Whittle Quadro wet its Whittle pants. But anything older based on the Source 2 engine will perk it right up and turn you into Thomas the Gank Engine, at varying detail levels. In other news, CPU and GPU temps didn't reach throttling levels, but a max of 89 degrees for the CPU isn't exactly cool, and gaming on your lap will be uncomfortable, although not unbearable. The hottest part of the notebook will be right above the keyboard, which is on top of the vents, and gaming on battery power only cuts a little bit to the CPU, but leaves the GPU fed and satisfied, making only a small dent in your frames per second. You can also make it last longer than 40 minutes by not using the Quadro, but where's the fun in that? This is a test of the webcam on the HP ZBook G3. I have pretty good lighting on me right now. I have 6 LED lights facing me, and the lighting is actually quite excellent on my face. I'm not overblown at all, and I think it's just about right. Motion is not half bad. There's so that's it. Pretty good motion right there. Is the microphone in stereo? Let's see. Is this a stereo microphone? I think. And that's a test of the webcam. For the bottom line, the HP ZBook G3 makes the most comprehensive, appealing package to those going to school for engineering or architecture. This workstation will happily accept your workloads through your master's degree. If you're going for your doctorate, though, well, a $2,000 to $3,000 machine is suddenly nothing compared to those exponentially rising tuition costs anyway. Have fun, you crazy bastard. In the other camp, those of us too lazy to make something of ourselves, getting a used HP ZBook G3 makes a great alternative to a contemporary notebook with an MX150 GPU. These ZBooks cost about the same but have immensely superior creature comforts and styling, not to mention those 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports in case our future savings burst forth with enough cash for a decent external GPU setup. In conclusion, students get 2 thumbs up. It's lighter than average, has an excellent battery life, and phenomenal creature comforts. The keyboard is quiet for the classroom, and you can easily work on that humanities paper in the center of campus while you people watch. A word of caution would be that I consider myself very lucky to get one with a battery in as good of shape as this. You might want to consider getting a replacement and a T9 screwdriver. Just saying. Casual gamers can totally go for this if you're not picky about your library or what detail levels you play at. Keep in mind that if you're buying this notebook to join the PC Master Grand Touring race, you won't be in the fastest car, but you will be in the most comfortable. Competitive gamers could use this. As target practice, it would make for an expensive bullet sponge though. It's made of aluminum, however. At least take the screen out first, cause it's so nice. And now I'm giving it way too much thought. Desktop replacement users, this is your jam. You can hub it up with those Thunderbolt 3 ports and use the screen for anything you need, even professional photo editing. Sure, it doesn't have a numpad, but it's so good. It's so good. This notebook is too OP for home users. It's just light enough to carry around the house, the battery life is very good, and the speakers and screen make for delightful media consumption. It also looks pretty good on the coffee table with the chrome trim and subtle styling. This has been a review of the HP ZBook G3 here on Theje's Notebook Review. If you like what you heard and saw, you can support my efforts here on YouTube by downloading Joel Michaels' music on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or Amazon MP3. Links are in the description below. Don't forget to give up a thumbs up, subscribe for more, and ask any questions you might have. Thanks for watching, and you guys, have a good night.